Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing? Happy weekend. I didn't oversleep. The stream started exactly on time. I just wasn't here. It's okay to talk about Friday, but no complaining. But I want to complain. How you doing, Dork? I'm doing all right, man. Only whining allowed? Exactly. Exactly. Sometimes when you're making predictions on the stock market, you're far more correct than you want to be. And more correct than any reasonable risk management would ever allow. Imagine losing money Friday. Oh, I'm sure a lot of people lost money on Friday. Don't act all fucking high and mighty. I saw you tried to short the top at the end of the run. I mean, but also keep doing that because pigeon whale. I don't know what. I still made money. Yeah, it was hard not to for $50 there, but at the top and bottom of that $50, very easy to lose a bunch of money. All right. I don't want this to take 9 hours like it usually does. So, well, I figure if we jump right into things, then we have more time to talk about complete nonsense, right? My girlfriend loves when we spend hours chatting. I know. More time with her boyfriend. She calls you my other shorty. I'm on holiday. 9 hours is okay. How was your day? It was not Megan. It was Megan, and I didn't go out with her a second time. I realized before I called her back the next day that I probably couldn't say that name sober. I think I made the right decision. All right, so we could start with GME. I think we should have Carl should have posted the up to date FTD shit in the various discords. He usually does. Fill to volume ratio on GME picked up pretty nicely through the bigger part of the run, hitting almost 5%. Remember, the fill to volume ratio on GME has been significantly lower over the last 2 years. So impressive given all the available liquidity. I think it peaked at around oh 4.25 leading into the end of March. Um and then during the initial part of the run, we saw it around like 2 to 1.5%, and then ETF FTDs were moderately high from like on like 5.2, 5.3, um, where we saw a pretty decent run. However, ETF FTDs coming up, especially for here in the beginning of June, are pretty low. I think they peak on 6.6 and 6.7, and around 300, 400,000. So not too much there. Being above the that pile of gamma at 20 does still cushion the $20 strike and kind of protect it. However, once we do fail that strike and volatility falls low enough that the drops the remainder of the Vega hedge, it should be pretty easy for us to fall back under that level. Liquidity's, getting nice and loose. We're starting to get a little bit of shorting, not excessive yet, and it's definitely at a slower pace. Um, I would say though that there is still some potential for a run to like Gamma Max, which right now is sitting around. Oh, where was it the other day? Um, Sitting right around 23.40. So figure within 5 to 10% of that. Um, Charm is also moving towards spot, which could put GME in a situation where we see another move into a positive charm environment, which is also bullish. So this coming week has a little bit of a potential for a run. Vol's moderately cheap, or at least compared to the historical. I think. Let me take a look at what we got on that. There we go. Yeah, IV30 pretty far below the historic vols around 332, IV30 right around 177. I don't think that's updated for Friday. I don't know why it's not updated for Friday, dork, but I don't think it's updated. You remembered her hair color? You were catching feelings and got scurred. Don't lie. I missed this person's intro and they're already over. Megan sounds narcissistic. Do I see a new indicator on your chart? Oh, I don't know. Probably. There's a lot of indicators. We have all kinds of indicators. The important thing is you don't know what any of them do, and that's really what matters. Um. Anyway, yeah. So GME, a little bit of a potential for a run this week. I would say 23 to 27. Um. Maybe that test of 30, but still not very tantalizing unless it can break 30 and start to increase that Vega risk again on those farther dated sold calls. Super duper data boy air service drools out of both sides of mouth. Can't say your name sober. Feels like a Seinfeld premise. I do live in New York City. Yeah, earnings could be a driver of price action, or the opposite, right? We already know that they're not expected to be very good. And I don't know if we actually get an earnings call. This is the shareholders meeting, isn't it? So he's actually got to do an earnings call. Yeah, I don't know. Can you run through the possible outcomes on price on BNED's share offering this week? Yeah, we'll get to BNED. Upstart starting to get a little bit more liquid again. ETF FTD period, so we could see a little bit of a bounce back. Probably not as a run as high as the prior one, but remember, above $25, volatility is going to pick up. That could push a run to 27.50, maybe even 30 again. Although I feel like it's more than liquid enough that it'll probably get defeated. FTDs aren't particularly crazy here, so I think 1.3 million is kind of the peak on 6.7. And there's some changes with T plus one. So remember, FTD dates are going to be a little wonky for like 60 days until all of the T plus two prior FTDs cycle out and we get on track with the new T plus one FTDs, which are all going to basically just come a day earlier than they used to. But yeah, this looks like it's got a little bit of a potential for a run. I know it had picked up some call interest at the. Is it gonna load? Nope. I believe it was the 25 and 27.50 strike. Um anyway, so yeah, Upstart looks okay. Probably not worth chasing, but it might be worth shorting the top after ETF FTDs are done and it blows out. Remember, ETF FTDs usually aren't worth playing. Um Fubo, I don't think has anything super impressive. Although there are a bunch of, I'm guessing IWM fails out on like 614 to 620. So during OPEX, or leading into OPEX, there's a whole bunch of failures. That's also true on Upstart and beyond, because they're all in IWM. So IWM just generally has a bunch of failures going into the OPEX period. Top, nothing really interesting going on there. I would look to see if the tips cross over again, though. It has been holding the $1.50 level pretty well. And again, they still haven't gone out of business. Liquidity is also not looking that great. It's a little bit more liquid. Hasn't quite crossed back over. Top. Tops are beyond. Sorry, beyond's now off reg show, so we should expect this to fall back into the lower range. Probably look somewhere around. Oh, as low as like 550, 525. Before it starts to get illiquid enough to move back onto reg show again. Although, last time it was fine just waiting till it was actually on reg show before entering. It does, however, look like it's heading right back there. I mean, the shorting's been pretty consistent. That should generate enough fails that over time we see it pop right back on reg show. I will say that the most recent run wasn't very impressive, as far as hitting its maximum potential. We did hit gamma max, but we didn't go over it very much, and it was a little bit lower than the prior two runs. However, I do think that was because there was a lot of liquidity that came off the back of that big earnings call spike. This one peaked, trough to peak was like 73% versus the prior 162%. And the one before that was about 99%. So yeah, not as good a performance. Although it also didn't get as liquid at the top of the run, so it started getting shorted before the stock was very liquid, and so this might mean that it gets back on reg show faster. It also might mean that the next run has slightly more potential. But yeah, it is kind of a head and shoulders. So you want it to kind of come back and test that neckline around like 550 before even looking at an entry from a technical perspective. Um, Go EV's done literally nothing despite you guys talking about it every fucking day. Um, it is a little illiquid. That looks like it's kind of peaked, and we're possibly getting some covering on it. This could be a good opportunity to sell CSPs as long as they remain overpriced and the yield on them stays pretty high. There could be an opportunity to sell them even in the money at like 250, with a chance to get out either between the ETF FTDs or the OPEX period, especially if this period of covering leads to some price improvement and maybe a test at that sold call wall at $3. Remember, after the OPEX expiration, a lot of those short calls are going to fall off, and that is going to free up the upside quite a bit. And at that point, short puts will no longer carry the increased premium that they currently do. So if you're looking to make yield on CSPs on this, or you have been, um, this period presents generally a pretty decent time to sell like 30, 45 DTE, and get out with a profit on any move that puts your put out of the money. What's your name on YouTube? Jettle? Yeah, I don't see them. Hold on, let me look at something. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you're not hidden, but you don't come up on top chat ever, which is really weird. I wonder how many people that happens to. Why don't any of your comments come up on top chat? Maybe you're like shadow banned or something? Did you get banned from another YouTube channel? Did you go like say shit to Matt Kors and get banned or something? No? Alright. Why aren't you looking at live chat anyway? I don't know. I never change it because I'm lazy. I don't think about it. YouTube is now tied to your credit score. Win crash. Not Monday. Well, I mean, I think JFresh retracted his statement anyway. T Brook 18 this week. How's it looking? A continuation? Any possibility of a pullback? Well, hold on. Let me cover BNED, and then we can take a look at T. So BNED, as you all know, broke through 50 cents on Friday. That's very bad. We're getting pretty close to the share offering. I believe it happens on Tuesday. That's going to 32x the current free float, at least until the reverse split is implemented. So I don't see that being like bad for the shorts. The price is probably going to come down super fucking hard. Yeah, doesn't look good, right? They survived long enough. They're gonna get a big flood of liquidity, and that should get them out of all of their shitty short positions that they were trapped in over the last couple of weeks. So shorts win the day again, although bulls definitely won for quite a bit there on that 700% move to the upside. Um, After the reverse split, I'll probably look into going long again after everything kind of shakes out and volatility calms down a bit. Um, so yeah, that's it for BNED. Yes, shorts could get the liquidity and use that liquidity to cover, which could potentially drive another run. But very risky trying to play that. And with all of that liquidity, most of the price action will probably be netting, and not overtly bullish, right? This is on NYSE, and the netting of those shares is inefficient by nature, but it'd be very risky to play. And with the IV as elevated as it is, probably even more so. All right, that's it. That's it for the memes that we've been watching. AT&T, yeah. So AT&T broke above 18 after a really strong performance on Thursday and Friday. A lot of people are saying, utilities are a growth sector. I disagree with that. I think they're beaten down quite a bit, but they're still an indication of flight to safety. Um, I will be turning drip off on AT&T. I mean, that's the biggest change I'm going to make here. I have plenty of shares. I have no desire to drip more shares above $18. So I'll be turning drip off and reallocating that excess cash somewhere else. But I won't be selling. I don't really have any intention of getting rid of my position. If it falls back below 18, I'll turn drip back on. And I'll just keep doing that as long as I own it. Um, I think cash flows are still pretty much in line with expectations. The most recent earnings was decent. Management's been a little bit behind their projections, but uh, they're keeping they're keeping their promises. The payout ratio is getting slightly excessive, and the reason I don't want to buy shares in this range is if they ever do need, like we do, to get another rate increase, or if financial conditions get markedly tighter, they may have to cut the dividend, and if they do, the price of the stock is going to fall. So keep that in mind. But yeah, it's on a good path to recovery. I know they've still got that um, deal that's progressing with BlackRock for the 5G infrastructure, um, and it's performing as expected. A lot of opportunities to get into it pretty cheap, but I've been in for well over a year now, I think, or just over a year. Um, so I would say a continuation is definitely possible. Maybe back to the $21 range. We'll see how high it goes though. I know earnings are coming up pretty soon. The last earnings kind of saw a bump in margin, or net margins. Uh, but it looks good. Any thoughts on Cat? Yeah, so Cat's in kind of a weird spot. Dow was overperforming into the end of the week. Cat's options chain is still pretty barren. It is just Friday's low just about tested delta neutral. Now we didn't see any delta pickup, but we did see a bit of the negative gamma fall off. Um, there's still a lot of sold calls. It's still in a negative gamma environment, and it's still got slightly negative charm going into the start of this week. I would say long term, it's probably going to decline a bit. And the short term, it might get a little bit of a bump over the next couple of days, kind of a relief rally from the most recent drop. I'd probably keep an eye on that trend there, where we got that failure. And I believe this trend, well, pretty close to that trend, is what we bounced off of. Do we need this one anymore? Oops. Probably not. Now, I don't like shorting cat, generally speaking. So I would probably avoid trying to play the downside of this, but I would say that there's a weekly opportunity for maybe like a $12 bounce, maybe a little bit more, like just over 350, 350, 250 would be the high range for that, and I would want to confirm on a break of 340. But yeah, if it broke 340 on this bounce, I would probably target a test of like 52, 53. Yeah, test of 53 up at gamma neutral. BAC. All right. Did very well Friday when financial conditions tightened for or loosened for absolutely no fucking reason. Delta looks terrible. There's a little bit of positive gamma. Charm was slightly positive into last week, but it looks like a shitload of calls sold off. I don't know. I don't really trade banks. Nor would I. So I don't know. Figure it out. Did you jump back in near the bottom on Friday? 261.21. No, I did not. Although, yes, that very well could be a re-entry point. Some of the upside on FSLR weakened pretty substantially. And we did fail the ridiculous trend that we'd held up until this point. Let me get down to like the 1 hour here so we can see that a little bit better. This is kind of distributive. We did get a 260 test, but we may easily get another one. I would probably confirm a breakout to the upside around, let's see, that's gonna be like 278, but I need to look at the options data on this. I love how you say distributive and believe the more than 1% of us understand it. Well, I figure the other 90% can look it up, right? I put a lot of faith into people's desire to educate themselves. So yeah, there's still a little bit of a put wall at 75, which could present some resistance. But if it gets back above 80, it'll start to pick up delta again. So yeah, I would say that 78 test actually on the technical is pretty accurate. And that would be a good bull confirm. It's going to shake off some of that negative gamma and pick up some delta as it moves into the test at 280. If it breaks through 280, it's still got that upside range of 300. There's still a ton of out of the money calls. So not far from dead, but definitely want to confirm the upside, right? Because the that positioning at 280 to 300 has weakened. It weakened pretty substantially, not only on the prior tests of 280, right, which we had two, but also the drop on Friday morning. That shook a lot of the shorter dated bullish positioning off, and that'll have to rebuild. And it'll be a lot more likely to rebuild if they're able to get it back above that 280 mark, and bulls get some confidence in buying more out of the money positions. As I understand, distributive equals unloading late longs initially, right? But sometimes the unloading of late longs leads to the unloading of early ones, right? Remember, selling always begets more selling, right? And so you can run into a situation where the late longs get out because they're badly positioned, and then them getting out drives so much price action that the early longs are started like begin to be convinced to take profits, which then kind of shifts the range for where a late long entry would be, right? So like this would have been a late long entry, right, if you bought into the bullish consolidation there, and got shaken out on this price action. That's gonna then, as that moves down and tests lower, right, that's gonna then make this a late entry, right, and these people are gonna want to maybe consider taking an exit on the next upside move. And so that's why, I mean, that's one of the reasons this test is so important as a confirm, because these guys are going to stay long if it breaks up, but if it fails that test, they're probably going to get out, right? And then you can get a larger downside move, right? You're going to get a move down to where they bought in. So yes, you're correct, but you need to understand the dynamics there. Understood without the word use of the word meatball. Thanks. Look at you. So yeah, FSLR, it's got an opportunity for a breakout. I would say you could enter below that, but obviously that's a higher risk entry. Um, all right, let's jump into some of the Mag 7, and I can see if well, doesn't look like anyone's on yet, so I'll just run through them myself. Start with Apple. Apple actually remained pretty strong through the drop. I would say significantly stronger. Like when I was looking at zero DTE opportunities Friday night, I would say that Apple probably looked the strongest out of the Mag 7, in terms of the bullish positioning on it, and least susceptible to a larger downside move. I still think that's pretty true. There's strong support at 90. 192.50 is kind of resistance. But if it can get above 192.50, and a little bit of momentum, I don't see any reason that it can't push for 200 in the near term. Um, I think we have a pretty decent amount of delta still on the chain. Not very much fell off with Friday's expiration. Gamma's still very positive. Charm is supportive. And bot calls are staying pretty elevated, right? And generally speaking, Apple's options chain doesn't move around quickly. So when it sets a trend, it sticks to it over the long run, mostly, right? And it takes a while for those positions to break down. People usually buy a lot of theta on Apple. And so it's something that's driven largely by delta and not gamma. Um, and unless there's like some crazy news or something, there's very rarely any huge amounts of short dated call buying. So I would say Apple looks pretty good. Break of 192.50 should be sufficient to push up into 95 and then possibly into 200 over the next week or so, or moving into OPEC's next couple of weeks. I mean, the market is literally like 32% reliant on the Mag 7, right? That's its concentration. So extremely. And what's even more interesting is out of the Mag 7 in this last quarter, the only substantial performer was Nvidia. Everyone else pretty much underperformed and or guided down on slightly weaker than expected beats, right? So I mean, Nvidia is definitely taking on a significant amount of propping everything up all on its own, which is means that we're getting an over concentration into what is a very cyclical sector. I was thinking of entering an oil position this week. Would you still consider Oxy cheap? Mm, I don't actually know what it's trading at, so give me a second. No. Maybe it's 61. 62 is pretty elevated. I was buying down here, like 52 to 57. I don't think I have any reason that I would buy up here. I'm actually have been fairly unhappy with my Oxy position. I'm gonna stay in it for the long haul, but it's very, very hard to sell like covered calls on it, especially in any kind of size. And so like with ZOM, I was able to hedge the downside on oil by selling deep in the money cover calls, right, and then just harvest the delta on any kind of surplus in supply, especially as we move into like late spring and oil demand kind of dwindles before it picks up into the summer. Um, and that's just kind of seasonal for oil, right? But Oxy, I was able to maybe sell like 10 contracts before I just completely blew out the spread, and then I couldn't find anything else. So harder to hedge the downside on this than something more liquid like ZOM or Chevron. But I mean, they still have really good growth potential in the Permian Basin. And if you have decent if you have a decent cost basis, you can always use protective puts versus using covered calls, which is net debit instead of net credit, and lowers the amount of overall capital you have to allocate to other things. So it's less advantageous. But no, I would not buy Oxy at 62. Sorry, I reported your stream for violence. Wow, wow, popcorn. Are you going to go over the neutral and max numbers today? What do you mean? Hope other sectors recover before Nvidia dies. Well, yeah, that's a we'll see. What's the difference between debit and credit, minus and plus? Credit plus money, debit minus money. Also, more importantly, when long industrials, oh, not yet. That sector has a lot of room to collapse. I'd be long like metals before I was long industrials. Going over gamma, delta, neutral numbers you post, what the implications are for them. I know you won't define the algo. Um, so yeah, we're not going to define calculations. When we get the service up and running, we'll have the definitions and the um uh, how to interpret them posted as, reference documents. But um I mean, they're not overly complex. They're simply a way of looking at dealer positioning on any options chain, right? Basically, delta neutral is the neutral point in the market maker's hedge. Gamma neutral is the neutral point for gamma in the market maker's hedge. Gamma max is the point at which the market or the market maker is no longer hedging delta, right? So that's the peak of where, or sorry, gamma. That's the peak of where gamma is on the chain. And then Vega neutral is where the market maker is neutrally exposed to Vega. They are quite literal in their representation. The effects are numerous, and I don't have time to go over all of them here on the stream because it would take hours. But as far as the implications go, I mean, you do need to understand market maker positioning and how that is affected by where their hedge is, right? Something I've covered almost every day for the last 2 years, to some degree. I would say that there are probably several videos and posts, at least in the Discord, that you could look up regarding them. Just like type my name and type gamma like neutrals, right? And I've written about it so much that I'm not going to spend 2 hours going into it now. As long as we're reading comments, how epic was NQ on Friday? I only traded morning, hit my goals. Wow, what a tip. Rip. Oh, yeah, it was nuts. Like 150 basis points, right? You have any timeline expectation for BNet after the offering? No. I don't. I mean, I was never in it for this like squeeze, right? The squeeze was just a byproduct of shorts being greedy. I was in it for the medium to long term, and I mean, I'll wait for the reverse split and everything to settle out. I'm not in a rush. I think it'll take them a fairly long time still to turn the business around and get that debt paid down if they can. So if I see a buy opportunity, I'll try to let people know. But I'm not gonna rush into it. I mean, think of it this way, right? Every you know any drop below $5 post split represents a significant discount to the subscription price, right? So if it goes down to $4, those those pre-split subscription shares would be worth 4 cents each. At $3, they'd be worth 3 cents. Yeah, so that's something we're building, but not something that I'm going to make readily available right now. Born too late to explore the world, born too early to explore the galaxy, born just in time to watch a man draw pickles. Cheers. Thank you so much, Moonwin. I appreciate it, man. Also, good to see you. How are your calls on GME doing? I assume they're short. They stopped shorting vol on Friday morning, then went full regard. Maybe their lives were on the line. On what? What are you talking about? On SPX? They were shorting vol all fucking day. They were selling in the money puts. Yeah. They were selling in the money puts as many as they feasibly could to keep vol from spiking. They're in a, I mean, short vol is in a very dangerous position. And think about it this way: at the bottom of our correction, back in April, volatility was less exposed. Like the short vol position was carrying less risk than it was after 100 bps drop this time. Like Vega exposure moved to all-time highs after we dropped. I don't even think it was 100 bps. It was like 78 bps from our high. So their positioning is very, very, very much even here still very much at risk. They really need to get SPX back to like 50 53.25 53.45 before they can effectively de-risk anything. I sold a SPY 455 September Vega put for 230 Friday morning, bought it back for 188. What gives with the massive drop? What do you mean? Oh, the drop in price? Because vol went down super hard on Friday. VIX dropped 10%. VIX 3-month dropped 5%. It was a pretty significant move. They managed to push VIX out of backwardation pretty much all in one day. The scale of it was nuts. Well, it just kept squeezing, but we'll go into that when JFresh and Doric hop on in about 13 minutes or so. All right, let me try to go over a few more of the Mag 7 and, bigger tech stocks. AMD, as you all know, we caught a run on it early last week. It was very profitable, and then it kind of pulled back into the end of the week. It did close the week slightly positive on charm. There are still short puts coming in, but the out of the money call interest has not picked back up yet. I would say on a break of 170 here, it's got a little bit of potential to move back into the remainder of the longer dated bot calls that are still sitting on the chain. It is lagging way behind performance in the rest of the semi sector, and definitely way behind Nvidia, right? And given that they're really Nvidia's only competitor, I think that's important. So what it really needs is a break of 170. If it can get above the calls that were sold there earlier in the week, it's got a very good chance once again to move up to that 180 test, 185, 190 over the next couple of weeks. So that's where I'm going to be looking for a confirm on that. And there's still a very, very decent chunk of out of the money calls there. Sold or not doesn't matter, as long as they go in the money. Can the big boys throw their weight around to put short vol in jeopardy? So we saw a little bit of that, and we still have a ton of short calls above 5300, right? And so we kind of covered what that does to gamma at spot. So, we have all these short puts here. Those are bolstering the backside of this, right? Right. And then we have all those short calls here. And what that's kind of doing, at like 5,300 is as more calls are sold short, this is going to like move over, right? And that's gonna pressure. It's gonna push gamma at spot down, right? So those sold calls kind of they kill the momentum on the zero DTEs. And that creates a situation where no matter how many zero DTEs the bulls buy, they're never really able to push price up above that like 5300 5315 range, right? And so, this is still, those options are still on the chain. It was a big problem previously, when we were testing these levels, right? We just simply couldn't break above that sold call wall. And this is kind of the range where gamma was getting crushed right here, right? And we're rapidly approaching that range again going into this week, and we can see the exact same thing. You know, those options are further dated. They have a lot of delta, and they're just negating the effect of zero DTE like pumping, right? And so, what we're likely to see is price just stagnate in that range again as more short calls compound, and then in order to keep price there, they're going to have to sell even more vol, which makes short vol even more Vega exposed. But it does offer a neutral point moving into the upcoming data over the next couple of weeks. Remember that we still have CPI print, and we still have a FOMC meeting. Um, and both of those are going to be very, very important, right? Because the FOMC meeting, we're going to get the new summary of economic projections, and the CPI is going to be the first CPI adjusted for the new baseline move in healthcare costs. I did see CPI come in a little hotter for EU, and that's actually kind of bullish and should ease financial conditions a little bit. I mentioned last week that EU's inflation is pretty important. Um, a continued decline in their inflation would almost guarantee a rate cut here in at their June meeting. Um, but since it came in a little hotter, there's a slim chance that they don't cut rates and central bank policy stays aligned. Now, they may cut rates anyway, and if they do, the dollar is going to skyrocket, and financial conditions are going to get very tight very quick. So the not only is the FOMC decision coming up super important, but the EU and Great Britain, or Bank of England, decisions are going to be very important as well. Not to mention, oh, also BOJ. BOJ will be really important too because their inflation was hotter, which means that their inflation is starting to move back in line with their projections and into the range where they can consider increasing rates again. All of that currency risk could be pretty bullish for gold. That also could be, bearish for either euro or the pound, bullish for the dollar, and bearish for the yen. See a gap fill next week to the upside and finish out this gap. That's possible. Yeah. I kind of think we're likely to see the rest of this reversal play out before we find any weakness. We should stay pretty strong through the first half of June. I think the first couple of weeks of June, at least, we should be pretty strong. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Let me try to finish what Mag 7 I can. Amazon got hit pretty hard. It had started to look a little weaker, but there wasn't any confirm, and then it kind of just kept moving down. That's been a pretty consistent trend over the last couple of weeks. The options chain on it still remains moderately strong. Like there's still a decent amount of call side delta. Um, I'm not sure that the bounce Friday really was really very significant. So the market makers should still be really supportive here. However, I would confirm the reversal before going long. I know a little bit of charm is fell off on Friday, like a little bit of the positive charm. It may retest like 75 or kind of just get stuck right around this range for a little bit and consolidate before moving up. But I mean, market maker delta is around like 38 billion, and that's skewed positively. Gamma exposure is a little low, but it's not that bad. Charms, negative charms still pretty far away from spot, and we're still seeing short puts entered. So, because of that consolidation, this may be just a good opportunity to enter, weekly or next weekly short puts. And that, that way you don't lose out trying to go long on potential chop. But I would say that if it breaks back above 170, more strongly back above like 177.50, 180, I believe it'll start to pick up more delta. Let me just check the chain real quick and make sure. Hmm. Yeah, it picks up a little at 180, a lot more at 185 and 190. So this is actually kind of bogged down here, and there's a decent amount of puts at 175. So I don't think I'd trust a bounce, but I might be interested in selling the 175 and just waiting out consolidation to see what happens. And then if it broke above like 180, 180, 250, then maybe I would consider entering a call on a push higher. It really, really underperformed Friday's bounce as far as, the Mag 7 are concerned. So, it doesn't look great, but it does look like it can hold this level. I'm full porting JJSF. I can no longer deny my desire for cream pies. Oh boy. Poopy Cats gave me Amazon insider info. He gets his diapers there. Aren't they cheaper at Costco? I thought Costco had the cheapest diapers. No? I don't know. All right, let's look at Google. Google looks a little better than Amazon. Um, yeah, yeah. Google looks a little stronger. Gamma's a little more positive and also turning up. So there's still some short dated interest here. Short puts have been selling into the drop, largely at like the 170, 172.50 strike. Um, that might be a decent entry on those. If it stays at these levels through tomorrow, um, there could be an entry to sell like the 170, 170 spread. Um, but there is quite a lot of call interest at 175. Put interest starts to there's sold puts at 175 as well. Those going in the money can probably drive things back to 180, especially if NQ continues its recovery into the early part of this week. Um, I think it's pretty well positioned for another move up. But getting back to 180 could be a little difficult. So maybe like the 178 test. If I were buying calls here, I wouldn't want to buy them very far out of the money, but like maybe something like sell the 172.50, C, buy the 170, or actually. You know what? Maybe sell the 175. Let me look at this. Hold on. We can pull it up and fuck with it for a second. So we could do like June 7, sell by uh, 175 break even, but that's not by the end of the week. It'd have to be over 178 by the end of the week. Downside, well, you could do the in the money one. That's not too much better. Yeah, you know what? I'd probably just do this. Like, nope. Something like that. I think that captures the upside pretty nicely. I don't like that it carries a debit. You could do that. Uh, 178 test by end of week's like 700% return. I had 200% on the test of 175. That's pretty solid. I like this. $64 debit. Max loss is 564, but should be able to cut before a loss of 73. Could tighten that up a little bit and reduce your max loss. I don't think you really improve your chance of profitability much though. And I wouldn't want to sell the 170. Yeah, I kind of like this. That's not too bad. The only thing I might do different is like go out to the 14th with the call. So you could stay in it a little longer in case the upside continues to move into the bigger pile. Well, past the bigger pile of slow calls. Oops. The fuck did I just close? Son of a bitch. Okay, never mind. I didn't break it. That one might be interesting. Which option strat can increase T? You could sell puts on T and then get assigned on them. And then you would have more T. Boom. All right, let me grab the other guys and they can fucking hang out while we do the God damn it. The audio.
No, we cannot.
Now I'm gonna have to fabricate a whole new story for putting things in my butt.
What?
Or you could just not. You could not
Fortunately,
do that.
fortunately, no one had to hear any of that because I didn't have the audio hooks up. How are you guys doing?
Pretty
Good.
good, other than having to listen to Dork talk about his butt.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
he likes to do that.
My lawn's alive now after I got the sprinklers going and the irrigation thing's working out good. So
Cool.
that's the update on that. I know we had at least one participant who
Very
was interested
interested.
in the irrigation.
Very interested
Yeah,
in your irrigation foibles.
yeah. So I am irrigated. I even adjusted the sprinkler heads so that they spray in the right spots on the backyard lawn, and yeah, good times.
So I was just finishing up the Mag 7, but I saw you guys in here, so I figured I could bring you guys on for the rest and we can take a look at meta next.
It's like the one thing I haven't looked at yet.
Well, it still kind of looks shitty. Um, it is just above GN. Um, I would guess stable. It looks like, I don't know. It looks like charm is miscalculated. um,
It might.
but I would guess a little bit of positive charm falling off into the back of last week. This should be support after the bounce, or it should still be supported after the bounce, but it kind of looks like shit compared to the rest of the Mag 7. Like, I wouldn't want to sell puts on it or buy calls because the out of the money interest doesn't look very spectacular.
You know what? And I know we're on Mag 7, but you know what I found interesting was Carvana closed the week below DN.
Yeah, yeah, Carvana's a big pile of shit. I'm still short. They can't shake me out.
They can't shake me out either. I'm not leaving until it gets to $2 a share.
Yeah, I guess like I mean, based on the positioning, it looks like Meta gets a little bit more bullish above 270.
Yeah, that was my
Yeah,
threshold for not like staying in my meta calls was losing 470. I was like, all right, this is the bounce failed, and I kept my puts open, and that way because it was like one of those things where if meta fails the break of 500, right, like that's a huge chunk of support for the market,
yeah,
and so the market was probably going to fail too. So I kept the put open. I made like I think I closed pretty much flat, but then I reopened my put at the top of the like bounce thing the other day,
yeah.
and then I closed all my puts at the beginning of this fucking run because it was like I was like, well, the market's bouncing and it's probably gonna do so for the next couple days. Little did I know it would do a couple days worth of bounce in 30 minutes.
Yeah, so what's really weird about Friday's bounce, I mean, maybe the weirdest thing, and looking at the Mag 7 here, is that although a lot of them benefited from the bounce, it doesn't look like positioning on any of them really changed very much.
There was
Um,
no time to like really move positioning. Like it happened so fast. I feel like we're
yeah,
just gonna float here for a sec while people reposition because that was like crazy.
I mean, if the market can support floating here for a second, remember we're still below like gamma neutral, right? We're in a actually opening tomorrow in a really tricky spot. Um,
Yeah, they're gonna have to sell a shitload of puts at 50 to keep this up here.
yeah, yeah, and their risk is already it's already pretty crazy. Let's see.
Well, I mean, I'd
Did
imagine
any of
shit gets
it
pretty volatile in
did
the
any of
market.
the Vega risk pull back at all? No, it just increased.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
Vega exposure only goes up. So we're at
yeah,
we're at new all time highs again. We've made a new all time high.
of course we
This
have.
is the most insane shit I've ever seen. There's
Well, I mean,
16 billion in Vega exposure on SPX.
it makes sense to me, right? Like
And SPXW is almost at the all time high. It's at like 10 point. It's like 20. 26 billion, 26.5 billion in exposure.
But it makes sense. After everything we've seen all year, there's no doorway out.
No, they're I mean, like they could barely sell puts into like a 100 BPS drop. Right? The entirety the entirety of our drop this week topped out at 200 points. And Vega exposure has done nothing but go up.
Well, yeah, it's because at this point, right, like VIX is just not doing anything. So you can go and sell a giant pile of puts, but you're really only going to drop VIX by like, maybe half a point.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just diminishing returns, just continuing to compound, and that it's just you can't stop, because the moment you stop, right, the whole, especially if you're long equities at the same time, right, like you have no choice but to not stop, because no one's really like buying up here besides the MM and 401k holders.
Is that better? Can you guys hear Dork better now?
Oh, am I sounding bad?
Yeah, I got you turned up. You're good.
Okay. Yeah. But it's we're just it's Sisyphus, right?
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah, they're just trying to push a fucking rock up a hill, except the slope of that hill. It's got a concave slope, right? So it's
It's
yeah.
more like pushing a giant boulder up a dune, right? But the dune is getting steeper, and so like the sand, right, is sliding out more from underneath your feet as you push.
Sisyphus says I'm here. Fuck. We were hoping we could get through a member stream without you. Where did JFresh go? Did he just leave? Like we started talking about the market and he's like, I don't want to do this shit, and he just walked away.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe there's another tornado hitting his house.
Oh god, I hope not.
Yeah, that was the worst.
None of these look good. Yeah, like Tesla doesn't look that good. I need to look at Nvidia.
Sorry, I was just getting my son lunch. What did you ask me?
Oh, we just wondered if you like we started talking about the market and you were like, fuck this, and left.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I don't care about any of this.
Yeah, I know.
Well, yeah, Yam LeCun is JFresh's new BFF.
That's you know what's something interesting is a bunch more Delta fell off Nvidia on Friday, like a lot more. 20 more billion in Delta fell off, even with the bounce. And short puts still look like they're closing. Charm is still drifting a little bit towards negative. Like it's not very supportive here. Yeah, Nvidia doesn't actually look very good. Despite the
I
bounce.
agree.
It looks kind of shitty. This is all so surprising that they didn't lever up like the actual dispersion despite squeezing the should we call it squeezing? I feel like squeezing's the wrong term
It
for
wasn't.
what
It really. That's the thing is I've been trying to figure out like what potentially caused it. It was not a squeeze on the index in the sense that so it could have been like
it's like a squeeze on the MM's like negative delta.
maybe, yeah.
Right?
But
like
no,
all the
it wasn't like
short puts.
closing.
Well, it looked like somebody was closing short calls, I thought, initially. But then I like went back over it yesterday, and it kind of just looks like all of the short puts that had moved in the money moved out of the money, right?
Yeah.
And so like I think just like once we broke like 25-30 there, and we really started to get a lot of a decent, like the majority of the short dated sold puts out of the money, and they were selling those right when we were trading at like 52.15 52.20. They were selling like the 25 and 30 put, and I think like as soon as those went out of the money, we just got a big fat cover bid on ES, volume skyrocketed, right? And then that drove, more puts out of the money and more puts out of the money, and like all the way into the end of the day. But all of those like short puts kind of, well, at least the shorter dated ones, it seems they only really run up to like 52.75.
Yeah, so I think where I do see a lot of, so I'm still kind of interrogating the meme 7, but that seems like a more likely candidate for what was occurring there. So they could have, obviously they were pushing down on the index into a pile of positive gamma on the downside with all those sold puts,
Yeah.
which the MM is supporting, and so it can have a little bit of a ricochet effect because of that. But I think all of that buying was really being done at the single stock level on really large names. I mean, you look at like Microsoft, for example, it absolutely rocketed. And if you look at while it was rocketing, the trades that were occurring on the options chain kind of matched, this meteoric move. Whereas on the indexes, there's like not really much change in terms of the landscape.
Yeah, the positioning
So
on the indexes looks relatively the same. Like, not, I mean, they were selling a lot of zero DTE puts, but as far as like opening up
yeah,
longer
those were
dated
doing almost
position,
nothing.
yeah, I didn't see any significant movement outside of the shit that was already there. And we're still in the same position we were 3 days ago, where everything to the upside is fucking sold calls, and we're over like the
Yeah.
bigger piles of shorter dated short puts. Um, so like, I mean, do they de-risk and we collapse? Right, because they're still below gamma neutral. They haven't gotten gamma neutral back, and the MM's still going to be a seller on any downside move. It's tricky. We're in a tricky spot. We're in a really tricky spot.
It is tricky, I agree.
Yeah, and we do kind of see what you're talking about, right? Like we just saw that massive end of day breakdown, and like if you look at like core 1 month, 3 month, like both of those reversed super hard, really violently. But probably far in excess of like what we actually saw. I know the index had a crazy move, but um it seemed like dispersion had an even crazier move.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, what occurred there, but I think it was related to. I think it was definitely related to dispersion. I think it was something to do with likely either futures on ES or VIX and then single stock names. It really wasn't SPX at all.
I think it was crime.
What it means, I don't know. I haven't quite pieced that together yet. Like what the move was supposed to be for, whether it was opening a position, closing a position, or trying to save a position. I haven't been able to suss that out.
It was like the largest 1 hour move in volume on SPX since end of Jan, actually, the last day of January. That's
Yeah,
kind
it was
of
pretty wild.
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, people have played it off because certainly we've had days where the market has moved more, right? But there was something about the just the sheer velocity of the move and the momentum of the move so quickly that I think was notable, even
Yeah,
though we've had those kinds of days before that seemed a little off the charts in terms of how quickly we moved up as far as we did.
yeah, it was definitely a crazy bounce, and some indication of where it was going intraday, and a lot of people have been asking over the weekend, like, how did we know? How did we know that the 5240 and the like potential for 5250, 5270 was there? Like, how did we predict that? And I think we could kind of go over the mechanics of how the options were structured on Friday and why that led to what it did. I mean, obviously, like, the probability of a move to 5270 was not likely, right? Maybe,
Yeah, I,
may,
I think, and I think that's important to really hammer home. Like it wasn't like there was any data that we were able to see and say, oh, this is definitely going to happen. This is free money, right? I mean, nobody has that kind of crystal ball.
yeah,
But what we saw was like there is a pathway for the market to potentially go from here to here, but this pathway is not a guarantee. It's extremely unlikely, but that somebody could just slip through. It's like trying to think of a good example. It's almost like if you shoot a bullet at a wall, there is a teeny tiny percentage that it will miss all the atoms in the wall and just go right through, but it's really tough. It's really small.
yeah,
So we saw like a pathway open up in like the herd of the stampede of cattle where we could slip through, but the likelihood we would is small. But it's there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I can, from my perspective, and it's hard for me to do this because, like, explain this, because I've been looking at this data for so long that it's just, there's so much interpretation going on when I'm thinking about it that I'm not, that I probably don't have like a good way of explaining it. It's just become like instinct at this point. But basically, we had a very kind of unique structure in the zero DT positioning, and that we had large numbers of puts at 1525, and then they kind of fell off a little bit at 30, or I'm sorry, 1520, and then let me see if I can do this. Maybe I can just use like there we go. So we had like a little bit of interest at 15, a little bit of interest at 20, and then 25, 30 were kind of set up like this. And then after that, gamma just like went flat, right? There's very little gamma on the chain. Like 35, 40, 45, 50 even. And then we had another put wall at 55, and then calls to the upside of that, but they were very minimal, right? Because their moneyness affects how much gamma they have, right? And basically what happened was, the reason I said 75 is because this was kind of like or 70 was, this was kind of like where the peak for the calls was when we were trading down here at 15. And, as they sold these puts, and like at 20, 25, 30, we continued to just kind of like inch up through those, son of a bitch, like inch up through those, right? And then as soon as we broke 30, we just ripped through this fucking the flat, like the flat gamma range up to 50, right? And this was what I was targeting when I was, buying those 20-cent 5240 calls. I was like, we break 30 and we've got a clean move up to 50, right, where we run into resistance. But when it ended up, and then I was like, 70, 72 is kind of the top here. But what actually happened is we ended up hitting this other put wall and squeezing that also. And then, gamma on these increased, right? Because they got closer to the money and they were zero DTEs. So a shitload of gamma picked up on all three of these strikes at, 60, 65, 70. The 75 started getting bought because we were running so hard. So, that also ticked up massively. And then we just kept rocketing, right? Like we stabilized a little bit at the put wall. We got some consolidation, and then we just shot the fuck up into like 77, which was way beyond anything we could have seen in the beginning. But I mean, technically, it was all there, and that's why I was like messing with Doric, and I was like, nah, dude, we're gonna go to 70, right? Because that was kind of the extent of the run, and like as these short puts that were down here go out of the money, right, and all of these short puts go out of the money, the has to buy, right. We're in a negative gamma environment, so the mm's buying on upside moves. And so they have to buy more and more and more and more, and progressively as price continues to rise, we have to keep buying more. And then that's largely what drove the price action. So it's not really a squeeze, right? It's because of options going out of the money, not options going in the money. But it still meant that the had to buy to close short ES positions. And so that's kind of like at least my breakdown. Yeah. Now what does that mean for Monday? I don't know. Moves like this usually aren't very stable. Because it was so heavily driven by short dated price action. I mean, even in ES after hours, we see the peak of this starting to fail a bit, right? Um, and it's very possible that this could get rejected and go right back to 5250, where we have a large concentration of open interest.
Yeah, I think it all depends on how participants reposition on Monday for this big move, because like you said, like the index itself is not positioned, for a move like this, right? It's not. The positioning in SPX didn't change such that it justifies this kind of a move. So it's going to have to, the forward price, like this is such a huge move that it will affect the forward pricing of the index. But if it doesn't, yeah, it's going to fall right back into that, right in that range, what, like 55, 40?
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, I expect a whole lot of neutral repositioning on that move. And so I pretty much just think Monday and Tuesday are probably going to be flat.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, realized vol got blown out so hard, right? That it's really likely that we could see, everyone's short vol just scrambling to stabilize vol here, and try to hold this. But it's really hard to do, right? Like they really need to be over 5300 to get any kind of stability. This range, like 5275 on SPX, is not stable at all. Like if you look at the longer term positioning, we're still just sitting in a pile of puts. And like, yeah, sure, they're short and they went out of the money, but they could go right back in the money very quickly.
Sounds to me like everyone's just going to open up a shit ton of back spread.
It's possible. I mean, we could also just get more selling at the 5300 strike, and then all of the gamma, like all of the short dated gamma at spot gets crushed out again.
Yeah, honestly, that would probably be the best play, right? Because you want to, with a move like that, you want to take the sensitivity of the index and just fucking tank it.
Yeah.
Okay. Still sounds flat to me. I don't know. It'd take a lot of money for a continuation of a run of this magnitude. I mean, maybe to a smaller degree we'll get a continuation, but or the market just gaps up 100 BPS for no fucking reason.
According to this, realized vol dropped to 7.9% on Friday. What the fuck?
Those is that
Like 30 over 30 days.
let me see.
Can you guys hear me at all?
Now I can.
We can hear you.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I've been screwing with the audio on Discord sucks. Anyway, yeah, I mean, there's short vol wants us up, right? You said that over 5,300. I would say ideally over 5,350. But
Yeah, yeah.
there's so much positive gamma above us that they have to push so hard to make that happen. However, I mean, this does kind of look like typically Vega is longer dated, right? Because it goes down with time,
Yeah.
and
Veda.
gamma tends to be shorter dated because you need the IV to be small on it for the gamma to be large.
Mm-hmm.
So um, that tends to happen at short times, right? Where the price very rapidly goes from in the money to out of the money because the probability is smaller. So, I mean, part of me does say that this is going to be like a little bit of a melt up, not much. And obviously, if new positioning can come in, it can turn that around really quickly.
Yeah.
But I think I could see it going up to like 53 ish. Like I was thinking in my head around 53.10
Yeah, that's kind of where I
this
was, like
week.
53.10, 53.15. And that's kind of where you start to climb that. They need to climb that wall of like positive gamma to move the price any higher.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um
agree. And the thing that I want to know is what is our secret seller gonna do this next week? Is he done? I don't know. We've definitely been having a secret future seller all last week, and if he continues when futures open tonight, I mean things could get real nasty because people have just kind of doubled down on the short vol trade into this secret seller who was very large this last week. I mean, you could see it plain as day. Like overnight, the index or futures would just be going like down in a straight line. They were just selling, just a constant selling in the background, and any attempt to push it up would immediately get destroyed.
yeah.
And then during the day, I think it was on Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember because last week was a short week. I want to say it was. It doesn't matter, Tuesday or Wednesday. Um, like that constant sell pressure just got strangled and was held flat by all the zero DTE sold strangles during at the market hours, and then right at the end, once all of those strangles decayed to nothing, the market just dropped right back down to where that seller was selling, and then all night that night the seller just selling down in a straight line. Then the next day, right, we popped up a little bit more. It was a little bit more violent, I think, as people were responding to the larger drop. But then that got killed too.
Yeah.
And after hours, we almost came back down to that original line. And during the day on Friday, actually, we almost got back down to that original line, and that's when short vol, kind of just rebounded it like crazy. But if this short vol doesn't persist, right? I mean, there could be right on the other side of this that same persistent selling, and if that's the case, this thing could collapse pretty hard.
Yeah, that's my thing is that, like, you know, we're not in the best position for short vol end of day Friday, right? Like they really needed 53 for it to for me to be like, okay, they're fine, they did it, this is a recovery, they can stabilize and like bleed off their like short puts over the next couple of weeks. But we didn't quite get that, and we are kind of in a position where you know that negative that positive gamma really starts to like pick up here, right? To the upside, and we're kind of like here, right? In a position where we can slide back down really fast. And they really haven't stabilized it here. And that can be compounded by the fact that we're below gamma neutral, right? And the MM is going to be a seller on any downside move. So yeah, I kind of agree that we're hitting like a little bit of a rough patch for the next like $40 on the index, where they're gonna have to fight tooth and nail to get the rest of that move locked in. And they're already at like, all-time high exposure, and financial conditions eased a little bit on Friday with the drop in core PCE, right? But they didn't ease a lot. Like the 10 years still at 4.5, the 5 years at 4.5, right? Like we got a little bit of easing in like the 2 and lower, right? So a little bit of uninverting, but not much.
Yeah,
So
I think it really
leverage
comes down
leverage
to
is still
overnight.
yeah, leverage is still really tight.
I think if our seller comes back, it's going to be a rough ride. If they don't, and we're just like a low volume market, I think they'll get us back up to 53.10 ish. And then we'll just kind of sit there. It's kind of like a happy spot where short gamma and short vol would kind of sit in a happy little short term equilibrium.
And the thing is though, they really need 5350 to de-risk.
Oh yeah,
Like if they
they
want to
need
pull
to hit
back
like
any of that Vega risk
53.75.
and stop compounding it, yeah, I agree. They need to get, and I think that's what we saw last Thursday. Remember when we got that high open,
Yeah.
and that was the opportunity. We hit like, what was it, 5340 41, and shortfall just went crazy and de-risked as much as they could throughout the entirety of that day. But they can't de-risk here, and now that point has moved up. They really need. I agree. They need like 5350 to de-risk anything, and so their only option is to continue compounding risk without any real improvement in without any real loosening in financial conditions. I wonder how much more leverage is actually possible, and if that's even enough to get us into that range where they can at least stabilize. Not to mention, if we get into SLD and gamma neutral has moved back above spot again, we're gonna have a rough SLD period, because everything's just so fucking over leveraged, right? There's no way vol control can get away with not selling like a fairly significant amount of equities. And I looked last week, and it was like 20 billion roughly, right? That they needed to sell in order to like maintain margin. And then if you look on the CTA side, they're like 20 billion on a one standard deviation move, right? But on a two standard deviation move, they're net sellers of 160 billion.
Yeah. Well, lucky for them, we got like a 4 standard deviation move on Friday
Yeah, I
in the
mean
other direction.
that definitely bounced it back, but not back above their triggers, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Because I mean, their original trigger on this bull run was like getting over 5,300, and they didn't really come in hard, right? Like they didn't do a lot of buying over 5,300, and they still have all of the
No,
buying
there's
from,
no buying.
yeah, and they still have all of that exposure that they're just sitting on. And I feel like the more time that passes and we don't move higher, systematic funds are just going to close out, right? Like those triggers for that net sell is just going to get tighter and tighter.
Yeah, they've got to squeeze out some sold calls. I don't know if they're going to do it. I don't know how many sold calls, at least, especially on like the individual names and stuff too. I don't know how many are really there anymore, right? I mean, they've already been squeezed to hell, and people are slowly learning their lesson. You know, even though there's a lot of ETFs that sell calls, I mean, that's still a fairly small in the grand scheme of things. You know, the funds themselves, I think, comprise something on the order of $100 billion now, but that's like the whole fund. So you're talking about selling, you know, let's say it's even just a tenth of that. It's only like $10 billion. It's not a ton of sold calls across the entire market. Um,
No.
that being said, um, you know, for whatever reason, there's still a large amount of it sitting on the SPX. They could squeeze it out, but I don't think they have the leverage to really do that. They could bleed it out, which seems more probable that they just get us back up to 53.10 ish and they just kind of let the gamma decay and hope that more gamma doesn't come in, which it could.
Yeah, because I mean, at
Um,
this point, they're just incentivizing more call sellers. Like if we get a
yeah,
weak test
true.
at 5300, everyone's just gonna sell more calls because it's so advantageous.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, I mean, the vol sellers, you know, it's interesting because the vol sellers really start to get in trouble right at about the bottom of our range on Friday at like 51.90.
Mm-hmm.
They start getting like significantly underwater. Um, and sure enough, I mean, the amount of positive gamma that emerged from mostly puts, sold puts at 51.90 on Friday was kind of crazy. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of the line in the sand for them that they don't that that they start having to, you know, feel threatened to force close. So 51.90 on the downside is where shortfall really isn't really in trouble, all the way up to 5300, and then short calls, they're not really in trouble until like 53.25. Remember, like last, I think it was the week before this one, we were all just like, we're just gonna hit 53.25 over and over again. It's kind of the same thing, but they're not really super pressured until like 53.50, 53.75. And so,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, and
that's kind
and
of your range. It's a huge range, but that's kind of why that range exists and why we're in it.
yeah, they don't seem to be shying away from selling the 5350 and the 5400 especially. I've noticed has been just fucking stacked. And that's pretty far dated. You know, those are out at
Yeah,
like
some of that gamma's because it's so far dated, there is some gamma that's bleeding through. Yeah, even down here. Yeah, the gamma will grow as you get closer, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, ideally you don't want to sell them when there's no gamma. You want to at least sell them when there's some.
So that'll probably be most of what this week's goal is between, short vol on the call side and short vol on the put side. And I do think it's interesting that the dynamics now split. I mean, 2 weeks ago we were looking at this and it was just, just short put sellers, right? And that's totally changed. Just in that short period, well, 3 weeks, I guess. Just in that short period of time, though, we've gone from where the majority of Vega exposure was just put side, like nothing but puts, to there being a significant amount of short call interest with theta, right? Like with a lot of theta. I seem to be very, very confident that the index is not going higher. Um, so it'd be interesting to see if it's even possible to squeeze those out because any capitulation, any ground given until they've squeezed out the entirety of those calls, right? And we just collapse again.
Yeah, I would say again, it's all going to come down to the secret future seller, or any sellers. You know, maybe a new seller comes in. I think people who've bought have already bought, right? So that, I mean, certainly more money will trickle in as people passively invest. I don't know that I'm sold on this idea that money always flows in. I think usually it does, but that's just because money is constantly growing. The supply of money is growing, but in this environment where money is relatively flat, you have to consider the fact that people are selling it to retire, to die, to for whatever reason that they need to sell it. So I don't know that it's always a given that that passive income, right now at least, means that there's always money flowing in. Although that's been the case for a little while now.
We still have, well,
I would
we should
say
be
if
starting
if
buybacks again here. Now that earnings is mostly past, the blackout window should be ending. And that should be
I don't
like
know much. I mean,
5 billion a day or something like that.
yeah, that's a significant amount. And if they do start buying back again, I mean that this is something to look for. If we tend to bleed up to the 5300s, I think we're going to bounce around there, right? So they'll push up to 5325, will collapse, they'll push again, will collapse, and it'll be that kind of that same dance from the week before.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's ways to play that. The other alternative is somebody continues to sell, and then you have to look for bounces off of like 5200 to 5225 as short vol defends their position.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't like. There's nothing really on the indices that makes me think that this is gonna like just collapse on its own or moon on its own. We're kind of bound within this $100 range. I think a lot of that's going to come down to. I think it's going to come down to single stock names, the meme seven, right? I mean, one of the things that we saw this week and last week that was really interesting is a big divergence in the value of the meme seven versus everything else. So we had been kind of very slowly drifting up, like a teeny tiny fraction of a percent a day with plenty of variation in terms of the market cap of the meme seven. And then the last like week or so, we shot up like they gained almost 2% market cap percentage of all of the constituents of the SPX, which is insane. And in the meantime, while the meme seven was going up, the rest of the market was going down. So you're kind of and a lot of this, if you look, they're often inverted. So if one goes up, the rest go down, and vice versa. We saw that with Nvidia when it went up 10% one day, and then literally the rest of the market went down
Uh-huh.
because short ball kind of pinned the market flat. So because Nvidia is so large and went up so much, the rest of the market had to go down, which was kind of wild to see.
I saw that. Yeah, that was
But
a crazy day.
I think that's going to continue here, and so what I would want to see is sell pressure on the meme seven. If there's no sell pressure on the meme seven, if it doesn't look like this quarter's the quarter that people are going to start to de-risk, we probably still have another quarter to go. Um, the AI narrative is definitely shifting to the better. I think people are starting to be more critical as people become antsier about where's all my money, which is all long gone by now.
No, it's
Stuffed
all in
into
A100. Their money is
yeah, it's all
A100.
stuffed into chips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Which are
so the
bought with
narrative's definitely
loans. It's
shifting.
stuffed into collateral for loans that were used to buy chips.
Wait, so you're telling me that
Well,
all this money
so
is stuck into depreciating assets that are on leverage?
well, what's really interesting is the narrative's starting to shift on CNBC, who were, I mean, you could kind of argue that they were a big reason that we are in this bubble to begin with a lot of the stuff that they were pushing about the religion of AI early on. I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of the reason that people just believe that AI is going to be like the internet is because CNBC was saying that every day for like 3 months, and everyone just ate it up, and it became gospel. But now CNBC's got somebody, had somebody on recently, and they said, oh hey, OpenAI has said that they have recently in a some sort of announcement said that they have 150 million active users, which is how many users they had, in November of 2022. So what's going on there, right? Why aren't they growing? or is this number real? If they aren't growing at all, that's a huge red flag. And just actually having that conversation where we're questioning things and being critical of what we're being told, I think was a really big deal. They also had somebody on CNBC. I think I probably talked about this last week. I've been pushing this video over and over again because I think it's some of the most valuable information I've heard in a long time. Someone was looking at CIOs of the I think it was Fortune 1000 or something. It was large
Mhm.
company CIOs and asking them questions about their Copilot experience, their beta users of Copilot, and it's he didn't give explicit breakdowns, but he said nearly unanimously the response was, we're not ready yet to expand this from beta users to our entire corporation. Red flag number one. Number two, they all thought it was too expensive at $30 a seat.
Yep.
And he mentioned that some people even said it would have to be 80% cheaper for them to consider deploying it business wide. Huge red flag number two. And then the final red flag was nobody could really figure out if it improved productivity or not. And so you have right, so as people are starved for information, trying to figure out, as all of these companies put so much capex into this, trying to figure out how much growth is really going to occur. This was really important data. And and I think this says so much about this technology. We've had this technology for almost 2 years now, right? So at some point,
Technically, a little more than
it's
right.
yeah,
About
but
2019.
GPT-4 capability has been at least a year.
Yeah.
Another point I'll get to in a minute. It was kind of an interesting slip up that Sam Altman said this week, but I'll get there in a minute. But you think about it, $30 a seat. I mean, the average, depending on the average employee, all in, right? So including all benefits like healthcare and all the shit you have to pay for with an employee on top of their salary, is let's say best case, the kind of person who might benefit from AI, let's say 60K, but it's probably closer to 100K. But we don't need it to be that high. We just say 60K. $30 a month is like 0.6% of the cost of that worker. And if people are saying that Copilot is too expensive and they can't really evaluate the gains in productivity because they're so unclear, um, that is a massive red flag. And then the next argument would be, well, it's getting better rapidly, and so it will improve, and then we will grow into it, and it will become this flourishing business. But what's interesting was Sam Altman earlier this week was responding to the TED interview with one of the previous board members of OpenAI. He was saying that they learned that ChatGPT was deployed live through Twitter. They didn't even know it was coming out. Um, just talking about the lack of information and straightforwardness from him and the communication, and so he was responding to that. And one of the things he was saying about the development of ChatGPT, he slipped out that they had finished training ChatGPT 4 by the time they released ChatGPT 3 back in November of 2022. And they were discussing the rollout plan, right? So they already had GPT 4 and they were just discussing how they were going to roll out this technology slowly,
Hmm.
right? So that you could get people on and keep things moving upwards. So the current state of the art in AI is almost 2 years old now, and it has not improved at all. Not 1 second, not 1 cent.
Yeah.
We pretty much have exactly what we had 2 years ago. And it took ingesting the entire internet to create that capability. We don't have more data than the entire internet. We don't have 9 more internets to get another order of magnitude improvement here. And the things that people are proposing to try to get around that limitation are not very convincing, in my opinion, such as fabricating data, will never which will just compound issues, right? You'll get more hallucinations, you'll get more bias, because you're creating a limited data set. You're not creating a wider data set. You're influencing all the weights in a bad way. Anyway,
Yeah.
so we've already ingested the entire internet. The models haven't gotten much better since we did that because there's no more internets. And the current rendition of the capability is something less than a 0.6% improvement, measured by pretty much anyone, right? That actually pays money for this and needs it to succeed because they
Yeah.
put money on it. So I still think it's just a matter of time. I think obviously, given the path it's taken, I was really hoping by about now, June would be the turning point. We haven't turned yet, but I think we're making a correction, at least in terms of the narrative. And I think the money will eventually follow. But I'm thinking by the end of the year, it will become apparent that this was not what was being sold, and it will take a turn for the worse.
I don't even think we have that long. I mean, like CRM and CrowdStrike both push back pretty hard against the
Oh
AI
yeah,
narrative.
they all got stomped.
Wall
Well,
Street Journal dropped a big article over the weekend that AI has been massively overhyped.
yeah.
Um, we're still seeing the capex and we're seeing Nvidia make money because they're selling the shovels, right? But we're not seeing all we're seeing is reduced guidance all through quarter two earnings, right? Or quarter one
Yeah, and
earnings. Just
CRM was the
nothing but declining guidance across tech, right? With the exception of Nvidia.
Yeah, and CRM was one of the big pushers of AI right at the onset. They were like, we are going to use this to
For
improve
everything.
the bullshit
Yeah.
jobs that we facilitate, and it's going to make these bullshit jobs so much more productive. It's going to be incredible. And now they're sitting here reducing their forward guidance.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think that's really telling that's that, and those folks too, like Snow and others. I mean, a lot of their business is also kind of doing what the mega caps are doing, which is to sell these AI services. So being a middleman and selling, access to NVIDIA chips and those kinds of products. You gave a look, Girk. Am I wrong? I'm trying to
No,
get
no,
Snow
no, no, no,
specifically.
no. Poopy Pants said NVD is on day 10, and I'm pretty sure it's on day 4, unless we haven't updated our
Oh,
info. But so yeah, not what you were saying.
it
Sorry.
might be. Oh, sorry. I just want to make sure I'm not pulling this out of my ass because I've got a lot of I've anyway. It's a lot of information to try to keep straight.
Yeah, well,
But
it's a lot to parse through. I mean, it's just you get it from
if I
everyone's.
ever say anything that doesn't pass a smell test, let me know and I'll look it up because yeah,
I will. You're
it's
usually
I think
pretty
it's
good
good.
about doing your
Well,
diligence before
I
you
just think I
open your
think it's
mouth.
important that I think it's important that we speak about things plainly and truthfully without spin and without hype, because especially right now, like everything is just off the charts hyped. Like nothing is spoken about in terms of raw information, and in a lot of cases the information is purposely kept from us to continue the narratives. And so I think it's really important to recognize when people are just blowing smoke or not. And obviously I've been very critical of AI this whole time, and I think I'm justified, and I don't think I'm overdoing it. But if you come from an area where everybody's just singing the praises of AI, saying it's the next best thing since electricity and the internet, and it's going to revolutionize the world, yeah, I can imagine that I seem very extreme.
The bell
Honestly,
curve is
I
so
know,
far lifted down.
it's the crusade you've chosen, right? But I think it's a valid
It
one.
is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I think, despite the pushback and the shit you get on Twitter from everyone, you never told anybody to short Nvidia. um, it's, you are, I think overall, hopefully one day everyone will look back and go, yeah, that was the right call, I mean,
Well, but here's the thing: it's like I could still be wrong, right? I mean, somebody could come up with some crazy thing that really pushes it forward again. But as I see it right now, I'm not seeing that spark of genius, or the next thing, right? And until I do, I'm going to try to be able to say, I'm just going to try to say, hey, this is what I see from my own experience in tech development and tech transfer. I'm not seeing this golden gun opportunity here. I see a lot of issues, and I don't see a lot of solutions. And the solutions I do see seem deeply flawed. All of that's very troubling. That doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means as things are today, I would not be a betting man on AI.
Yeah, I mean,
I
well,
would. I would.
as someone who's like almost always in this position, let me tell you, it's never the popular one. Like no one's ever, and even if you're right in the end, like people aren't gonna sing your praises. They're just gonna be like, "Fuck, man, I should have listened to him." Right? But someone needs to, in any period of exuberance, there always needs to be somebody who's preaching caution, right? Because exuberance just
Yeah.
runs away with itself, and it's not a popular position to take, but it's the right one. It's morally justifiable, right? Like I'm
It's difficult though, because it's hard to square, especially in a trading community. It's hard to square that. Like, how do you take action on that?
yeah.
Because I know I make fairly convincing arguments for some folks, and it can feel like, oh, hey, this sucks. We should short it because it sucks. It's like, yeah, it sucks, but a lot of people think it doesn't suck, and that's all that really matters, right? It's not what is, it's what people think is. And
I
so if you try to
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
no. I mean, like you're right, right? Like, and I've thought long and hard about like what we talk about here on these weekend streams and how we dispense this information, and we've tried everything, right? We like warn people like, hey, like macros not the same as what's going to happen in the trading day, and we've tried every iteration of it, and ultimately, like at the end of the day, people are going to take what they want out of these conversations, right, and apply it however they see fit. But I haven't stopped because I don't think what we're saying is without value, right? It may be longer term, it may be like not something that can be immediately acted on, but most of what we've said over the last year and a half, despite all the shit we've gotten, has been accurate, right? Like inflation came back, financial conditions tightened again, which nobody saw ever happening after the November run. The Fed pulled back all the rate cuts we said they'd pull back. AI has yet to yield anybody substantial profits beyond Nvidia. I mean, so the things we're saying are true, and they have been largely accurate. I mean, I don't think any like financial pundits assessment of what we were going to run into or what was coming was as correct as ours, right? um but it did take time, because we were bucking the trend. We were against the status quo, and the status quo is what moves markets. And so,
Yeah, it's as somebody who it's kind of it's a large part of my job has become evaluate what is and not what people are saying it is.
yeah.
And that has given me, in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different areas, a lot of experience in seeing examples of things that are just completely misinterpreted by the people surrounding that thing that are perceived as the
Experts,
experts.
yeah.
And so, in a way, it's kind of freeing, and it's actually a lot of fun because it's actually everywhere where you will see a reliance on the words of experts in an area where the data clearly, like, there are clear tests you can make on reality that says, hey, these people are probably wrong. And yeah, it sucks because nobody else is going to do the work, and you're not the expert that they are already believing in. And so if you try to tell them, even with data, and say, hey, this is why I think this person's wrong, it's very hard to change somebody's mind in that situation because
I mean,
I
it's
don't want
hard.
to say cult, but
It's just hard
there's
to,
a cult effect you have to overcome.
yeah, it's like hard to be heard over the noise. You know, you're just the guy in the back of the room shouting, but everyone else is giving a standing ovation, and no one's gonna fucking hear you. And you know that's kind of like how that's kind of how Burry felt, right? Like you know, I was
I
telling
just had
everybody, huh?
I just had this vision that I'm just in this big amphitheater or whatever, like the big ridiculous Google room,
Yeah.
and Sundar Pichai just like took off his pants and showed everybody his weird deranged little willy and said, "This is gonna make Google $1 trillion." And everybody stands up clapping, and I just imagine I'm the stapler guy from Office
Office
Space, just
Space.
sitting in the back, going,
I'm just
going
gonna.
that Willie's that's a gross little Willie. Nobody's
I'm gonna
listening.
burn this. You're in the back, just like I'm gonna burn this fucker down.
Burn down the building.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, you know, and the worst part about it is even in the end when you're right and everything goes your way, no one notices, right? Because they're all just so sad that it didn't go the way they wanted it to. Because
But
you think like
but
that's when
now,
you get your standing ovation, but you don't. You need some guy to write a book
no,
about you like 15 years later, and then everyone's like, "Oh, this guy was a genius."
no. It's all going to come down, and the AI narrative's going to fall apart, and people are just going to say, "Well, you're still an idiot. You missed the whole run." It's like, okay,
Yeah, I think if there's one really solid piece of value that these discussions every Sunday, however bullshit some of them may be, generate is that I think all three of us are very good at looking at what's presented to us and breaking it down to what it actually means and getting rid of the hype and the fluff and the spin and just discussing the pertinent facts at hand. And for me as an investor, that's something I would want to have access to. You know, that's information that I would want. I would want people sitting down and thinking critically and you know an outlet where I can ignore you know the media hype and you know the CNBC pundits and their opinions that are you know uh, totally based off of their positioning. Like I can say
yeah,
bullish things about the
and
SPX and buy puts. Like
yeah, and we get the pleasure of now 285 people are thinking about Sundar Pichai's weird little Willie.
that's true. Yeah. I've never seen his Willie.
So
It's probably massive. Um, I'm sure he slept his way
I
to the
don't know.
top.
He's such a thin, like sickly,
Yeah, he's probably just
like
got a
has no shoulders.
huge dong,
So all of his mass
just
is
dick.
just
It's
centered
nothing but
into
dick.
his
Yeah.
his hog.
Yep.
His metabolism is purely
So
designed in an era
He's.
to
How do you
extract.
think he got to be Google CEO?
so would he be the quintessential lean hog?
Oh my god.
Oh man.
Maybe.
Oh dude.
Are we
Did you just sell the
long?
stock market?
Are we long lean hogs?
I don't know.
I mean, I have been since Thursday. Uh, yeah, the
Anyway,
whole
so
thing with being counterculture is well, it's not really even counterculture though. I mean, we're just sitting like so the bell curve has been shifted massively to extremism on AI, and we're just still sitting where the middle of the bell curve was, right? And we're just like, why did everyone all of a sudden lose their ability to reason and apply logic to these
Because they
things?
don't need to anymore. AI is going to do that for them, right?
yeah, it's like, hey, this is I will say for my scientific side and my engineering side, I mean the stuff that's coming out of OpenAI is really cool, and I think we are learning some interesting features of
Aggregating
how our
massive
brains
data
interpret.
sets.
Well, okay, so one of the things that pops out to me is something like their Sora model, their video generation model, and yeah, it generates mostly gibberish and it generates a lot of mistakes, but yet somehow it still generates something that kind of looks like, something that my brain would see and say, hey, this looks like input to my brain. And there's something about that that's hard to ignore. So I think some of the hardware in terms of the neural net they're building makes a lot of sense. And I think there's some value there in trying to parse out what exactly that value is and how it fits into the larger, scene of intelligence. But by itself as a product that's going to make the world trillions of dollars and replace Hollywood, I mean, that's where I kind of have to say, whoa, okay, it's cool, but it's like academic laboratory cool, not going to replace Hollywood cool,
So I have a
And
contrarian
that
argument
gap.
for that, which is that Hollywood already just remakes everything, and that's what Sora
Yeah.
does, right? So
Yeah, nobody
there's a
wants that.
distinct
Yeah.
possibility that Hollywood is like, oh man, this just takes our old shit and makes it kind of newer by combining it all together.
We should make more original videos. Hey, it
Yeah,
might revitalize Hollywood.
I know, right? Like, imagine if they made a movie that wasn't like Thor 9. Um,
With Thor 9, Thor gets ice cream too.
yeah, yeah. Jesus
What if we
Christ.
make Thor fat and sad?
We did that.
That'll be
Right.
funny.
That already happened.
I know.
And it was arguably the best part of all of those movies.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let's make Guardians of the Galaxy, but all it is them just constantly saying catchphrases and witty quips. That's all it is. They're just sitting in a coffee house, just being smarmy. Because apparently that was
Wait,
the
that's what we're doing. That's
Yeah.
what this is.
Yeah. Shh.
Are
Don't
they
ruin
trying to
this
pick
for
these
us,
up?
dork.
I mean, all of the things I've been saying, I've been prompting ChatGPT to produce. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting on this hype train. Even that was just ChatGPT and this and everything. It's like that. It's like that Rick and Morty episode, right? It's what we're going to evolve into if this actually is taken to its conclusion. You know the episode where Morty gets like the little crystal that tells him how he's going to die,
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, and he's like trying to like say words that are going to get him to exactly that point. That's exactly what, if ChatGPT is taken to its conclusion, that is what we are essentially saying is going to happen to the world. And whether or not you like that outcome, right? That's really what we're taking to its conclusion right now at this very moment. Is that's what we're all going to end up being as humans. I don't like it.
It's
But
not
the thing is, it's not even the
counterculture.
death we want.
People have been skeptical on AI for decades. Okay, yes, people have been skeptical on AI for decades, but now we look crazy by being skeptical, right? That's what dork
Yeah,
means
I
by the
think
bell curve has shifted so much that like the people who are just being
Yeah.
moderate, which is kind of where we are. I mean, JFresh is a little more extremely against, but I mean, I would say overall the discussion is fairly
I do a
moderate.
little bit of some of the effect is me trying to counterbalance the narrative by being equally as inflammatory,
Yeah,
but on the
yeah.
other end to try to be like, hey, you
That's how
idiots are way
extremism
too far over
happens.
on this side. Yeah, but with my extremism combined with their extremism will get us back to the middle, right?
No,
Maybe I
no.
should
Yeah, but we're
just
just going to be
rethink that
heavily
strategy.
perturbed.
It just
Shit.
pushes the middle further to either side. But yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's
Are we
just,
gonna have a civil war over AI?
God, I hope so.
No, we're going to have a world war over AI.
Well, that's something we should talk about in terms of volatility in the markets. And I know I really don't want to bring this up because it's kind of political, but it could affect things. Trump has been found guilty of several felony counts, and that's gonna be I mean, that's gonna drive market volatility, right?
Does that mean he's not
you
allowed
know,
to run for president? I still don't know.
I have no idea. I'm not a
I don't
lawyer.
think
I'm
so.
not
There's
a-
something that stops them.
I'm not a Supreme Court judge that's gonna decide on that.
Yeah, so yeah,
I don't
we're
think
going to
there's.
have that
I don't think
happen.
there's anything to stop him.
I thought you couldn't be
Also,
offended
he's not.
and
He
run for
hasn't
president.
been sentenced yet.
Yeah,
He's not guilty. He's not like a
I mean,
convicted
nope.
felon until he's been
He's
sentenced.
been convicted. He just hasn't been
He's
sentenced.
been convicted. Yeah, he's been found guilty. That's the end
Yeah,
of that part.
that's fine.
The punishment is
I
yet
guess
to
I
be
just
determined.
don't care. I know I should probably care more, but I spent all my cares on Donald Trump the last time he was elected. I don't think even if he was elected, I would care. I just don't have it in me anymore.
Well, the
to
market's
care
going to
about
move if he's
That's
not eligible to run for president.
that's
Like
a
that's going to move
reasonable
the
take,
market.
but when politics and the market collide, unfortunately, it is something that needs to be
I can give you a
discussed.
great example of politics and the market colliding. Because I put my house on the market right before the 2020 election results.
Ooh.
I put it on the market 2 weeks before the election. Those 2 weeks we had good, it's still a hot market, so we had pretty good showings. Probably a dozen people each week, and then the week of the election results coming out and like the president doing all that stuff. Absolutely zero interest at all. It was like the world was frozen. And again, remember this is like COVID, so it's like it almost felt like there weren't even any people anymore. Like everyone was just at home wondering like what was going to happen. And then the week after that, I sold my house.
Yeah, they actually turned off the lights at the casinos in Reno during COVID, which was really eerie. Having those just completely blacked out giant monoliths in the horizon in the sunset.
Do you know what I think proves that we shouldn't have killed Harambe beyond a reasonable doubt? Is if Trump goes to jail for like 6 months or something, but also becomes president.
It could happen and it'd be entertaining.
I think that's the ultimate sign that we are in fact in a simulation.
That's gonna be, God damn it, dude! Like this is such a crazy timeline. Is this not just like no one could have imagined? This is a 5 Sigma move in reality here. All right, like,
I
it's
know.
just crazy. We got a dude who's like both feet in the grave, about to fucking drop over dead as our president. We got another guy both feet in the grave, about to drop over dead and going to jail, running for president. Like, what the hell is going on?
Hold on.
Here?
But here's what's so genius about
if he
Donald
serves
Trump
any time,
is
if he serves any time, he's going to be going to jail for bribing a porn star.
Yeah,
right. So it gets even better the more detail you add.
You think Carl's got low? T?
It's just a Mandela effect of craziness, dude. Like it's just
what
nuts.
the hell do you have to do to a porn star to make them like feel disgusted, right?
Well, what makes you have to? What did you do to the porn star to make it to the point where you were like, I have to give this person money so they don't say anything? Like, what did you guys do? Like,
he seemed pretty shaken up about it on the stand. But anyway, so here's why Donald Trump's a genius is both him and Biden are old as shit.
Yeah.
And barely coherent, like very similar. But Trump wakes up every morning and puts orange clown makeup on so he doesn't look as old. And it's genius. Because it works.
Biden would win in a landslide if he could get a tan.
And a facelift.
Yeah, but I think his skin is too
like
at his age, like his skin is too thin. He'd just bake his bones.
Yeah, his skin might melt. Yeah, if he tries to put fake tanner on, his skin will melt.
Both of them have skin that's about as thin as 1-ply toilet paper. Just in different ways, all right? Trump's
why do we keep as a country, why do we keep insisting on electing, like where's like the Bill Clinton of our generation? He did naughty sexy things, but he also played the sax.
He also was also the president during one of the greatest, economic times in our country.
He was the cause of a lot of that,
really.
And that also then ruined it going into the future. So, good with the bad, I guess.
Yeah,
he's like he got the budget on track, but also NAFTA and got rid of Glass-Steagall.
Here's how old Trump and Biden are. think about either of them wiping their own ass with their own hand. Like, I just can't really see either of them doing that, right?
Okay, I think Trump
No,
can't
standing up
reach,
from the
and
toilet.
Biden doesn't have the flexibility.
No, when they stand up
Right,
from the
like-
toilet, how much do they groan? Like,
I honestly cannot. I just cannot picture either of them successfully wiping their own ass. That's how
Do
old
they both use? Do they both use those those recliners that like also go like super far up, so it helps them sit down in it and get up from it?
I wonder if we can make presidents wiping their ass go viral, so both presidents at some point during the election have to like wipe their ass in front of people.
Wait, so is Air Force
So
One
you have to
is the
show
staircase?
you have to show your taxes. You have to divest your
Your investments, and you have to wipe your
divest into
ass.
blind trusts, and you have to wipe your ass on stage.
No, I think the next 5 years they're gonna have to outfit Air Force One, like the staircase down from the plane. They're gonna have to outfit it with one of those chairs. So whoever becomes elected is gonna have to ride like the super slow chair down from the fucking plane. And
Yeah,
that's what they're
when do they get one of the
waving.
stair crawlers for Air Force One?
Yeah,
You know
it's gotta
those
be
like
soon, right?
those like little seats that the grandmas sit in and go up and down stairs.
That's what I'm
I
talking
think they
about.
should
Yeah.
get like. I think they should get a. They should just get rid of the stairs entirely and just get like a forklift and like glam it up, make it look real cool, like with a seat and stuff. And then they just
You
raise
still
the
have to
forklift
dry
up
your
and-
ass after you use a bidet, unless you have one like mine that has an air dryer built in.
a tongue.
Is that air dryer? Is it as powerful as like those Dyson blade dryer things where it just
No, God, you'd
It's
kill
a
yourself.
evil.
Listen, pressurized air should not be around anuses ever. Let me, as a public service announcement, do not even in jest put any sort of pressurized air near anyone's butthole. You will kill them instantly. But no, it's like a slow hair dryer, like a hair dryer on low, and not like a
That's
fancy,
amazing.
not like a fancy hair dryer, like a shitty one.
Did you have to remodel your bathroom to get that bidet installed? Because doesn't it also have hot water?
No, I don't have hot water. I don't need hot water. I like to wake up.
Okay, so you just have like a wire running from your bidet to a GFI or something.
Yeah, it's got like a plug. It just plugs in.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was looking at some bidets.
You can
The seat-
hardwire them. You can
really nice.
buy like the full toilet experience.
Yeah, I
you
was
get, like-
looking at the like even just the toilet seats are like $1,000. That was crazy.
Yeah, they're pretty pricey. But I mean, most of them last like a lifetime. You don't ever have to replace them.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Might do that just to up the value of my house. Just make
Yeah.
really good ass cleaners in all my bathrooms.
Yep.
Mm,
I mean, you should at least have one bidet. Otherwise, it's hard to.
I have two.
Okay.
So that way,
Alright.
me and my girlfriend can both be shitting at the same time and both have
Perfect.
clean butts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the winter, it's better than a cup of coffee in the morning. If you don't,
yeah.
if you don't have them heated.
No, yeah, perks you right up.
Yeah. There's nothing so like some
Uh.
30-degree water right on the starfish.
So, anyways, about how the Trump getting convicted is going to affect markets. It's not going to affect markets until we find out whether or not he can actually run for president. If he still
He
can,
can
he can,
constitutionally.
he can run.
There's very little
Yeah, there's nothing in
constitutional.
the Constitution.
There, state by state, there's a lot of issues about campaigning as a felon, but he can run.
okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of
Like,
state
you
by
have to
state,
be
did I
like-
hear correctly.
You have to be like 35, and I forget the Constitution exactly, but it's like you have to be like 34 and a white male, right? Is that it?
I think
35, I thought, but yeah, white male is very important.
yes, that's
Did I
quintessential.
hear
We have one
correctly
outlet.
that Biden's campaign flubbed up and he's like not on the ballot in Ohio or something? Is that a thing? What was going on there? Anybody know? Am I just like, does this make no sense? This is just complete fake news.
It doesn't matter. Ohio doesn't exist.
Ohio is
fake.
trying to get him off
There-
the ballot.
Ohio's a
Okay,
huge
but
swing
it's on
state.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a big swing state. I know what you're talking about, Turk. Nevada doesn't matter.
Are
No
you
one
kidding me?
cares. No
We're
one
a
cares
swing
about
state.
Nevada's vote.
We're
It's
dude. Back in 2020, we got Bernie and we got everybody showing up here, friggin' talking on UNR campus and shit. Yeah, they were all over the place here. Well, Clark County is super red, which is the one problem with Nevada. Nevada, not Nevada.
Nevada.
Nevada
Just because
Kedavra. All right,
just because you
that's the
guys want
spell
to
you.
mispronounce it doesn't mean that I'm wrong.
It's Nvidia.
Ask somebody who speaks Spanish how they say mountain in Spanish, and you're probably going to be right. However, ask somebody who lives in the state how they pronounce the state, you're going to be wrong.
It doesn't matter. They say Houston in Texas and Houston in New York. Who
You
knows?
guys have 6 electoral votes. No one gives a shit.
Hey, you know
We
what?
even had to look it up because nobody even knows.
Yeah, I didn't even know how few they had. It's slightly more than Wyoming,
Damn straight. Yeah, Wyoming
the
suck.
whose population is just cows owned by corporations.
There's like 3 people who live in Wyoming who run the fences.
Yeah, every once in a while the Fed goes there and explores Jackson's Hole.
That's true. Yeah, that's a thing that happens in Wyoming.
Jackson's Hole.
How have we never had a felon as a president? Maybe we just didn't keep track of it well back in the day, or
No,
like
back
president
you know,
elect,
crime easier.
huh?
You would just kill the hookers back in the day.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was also no internet, so they couldn't talk
Yeah,
about
exactly. Yeah, and hush money payments were way easier to make as well.
Yeah.
Like there was just a lot less like, paper trails and receipts to, follow, back then. Nowadays we're in the information age, so, if you need to disappear somebody, you need to wipe them clear off the face of the earth, which could cause a cascading effect of having to basically commit genocide.
Hmm.
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 Huh.
Interesting.
Biden should pardon Trump. That's not gonna
Whatever.
happen.
I mean, yeah, okay. So I guess in as far as it matters for the markets, yeah, it could cause more volatility, I guess. Sure. I buy that.
All right.
Which sure.
Yeah, there's going to be volatility over the next like 90 days as this whole
This
thing
is
plays out.
my this goes back to my prediction that volatility is going to pick up substantially as we move into election season, and it becomes more and more obvious that nobody wants either of these cunts to be our president.
I think that's already pretty obvious.
Yeah,
We'll
no,
see.
for sure. No, I bet if there was a poll that did a general approval rating of both, it's just like not one over the other, just like how do you feel about either of them? I'm sure it would look atrocious.
I mean, I feel like I could put a hot dog on a long stick with a tie, and it would have a better chance at getting the votes. Like I'm just gonna.
You're literally describing Sundar Pichai.
I'd vote for him first.
He's not American, is he?
I don't know, but who cares, right? I mean, it's still a better choice.
Are you just talking about
Am I
putting
just
the
being a
stick
racist
through like
piece of shit, assuming he's not American?
I'm assuming by the hot dog on a stick, you're talking about taking the stick and poking it through one end of the hot dog?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
No, he was born in India.
Some googly eyes and a tie. It'll be an all-American hot dog. Don't worry, J Fresh. I'll ensure that it's a natural-born citizen.
Oscar Mayer.
Hot hog.
Yeah.
Hormel.
Like a pig with makeup. I mean, anything at this point is fucking better than what we've got.
Well, and we talk about Bob Kennedy Jr., right? Being at the spry young age of what is he now? 65?
Yeah. Well, I mean, plus brainworm age. So.
Yeah, he literally has brainworms. Like, are we even really still going to discuss this?
Well, I was a fan of him until he started saying that Bitcoin was like the next huge thing and it was going to beat the dollar. And I'm like,
you mean it's until he went long GME?
Yeah,
he also went long GME.
Yeah, he went long GME.
Yeah, he put out an advertisement on Twitter that he was long GME, and
right after he said he had brainworms.
Stayed strong together. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
He was like, I have brainworms and I'm long GME. And I was like, oh,
Oh.
welcome to the club.
Oh god, we need to get him and We need to get him and Pulte collabing immediately.
Dude, if we could get him and Pulte on the Sunday stream, money. Just
to
straight
discuss
money.
their brainworms.
Yeah. Just can you guys tell us more about your brainworms and where you contracted them?
Oh man, we should have a guest
Like-
on the Sunday stream.
Well, we probably
Ew.
should, but could we actually avoid just interrupting them the entire time and talking over them? I doubt it.
Or the other way around.
It would not be a pleasant experience. For
So
everyone.
about an hour ago, I posted this chart, which I think is relevant. This is net delta on the 621 SPX monthly contract expiry, and as you can see, all of the short puts are out of the money. And there's nothing to the upside at all. Like there's no options interest past 5310. This is nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe Diamond's gonna hit us up and be like, "Hold my fucking beer, assholes! Watch
So
out!"
it seems like short vol just needs to hold it here for 2 weeks, and then the whole thing can just collapse.
2
Yeah,
weeks. That's
that
a long.
that could be a thing.
Yeah, I like that.
I think. Here's what I think.
All crashes are OPEX crashes, Bob.
Yeah, that's very true. But what I think is going to happen, if we are to assume that June OPEX, which is quad witching, right? If we assume that June OPEX is the crash, I expect to see more weakness in the index. We're not going to fill that gap up to 5,300. We fail it and then slow bleed down into OPEX and then we crash.
Interesting. I think SLD could be ugly, depending on how Gamma's positioned by the time we get there. I mean, this isn't indicative of the entire chain, right? Because the SPX weekly is far more bullish, but it's indicative of the largest positioning on the chain. And no, I don't think the collar roll had anything to do with Friday. It was like the baby collar. It's like 5,000 contracts.
What were the strikes on the collar? I can answer that for you right now.
Like what did it roll to?
What no, what were well, yeah, sure. What did it roll to? I'm assuming it was far enough out. Was everything out of the money when it rolled?
Yeah. All of the legs are pretty far out of the money. Let me see, 1 second. I got it written down somewhere. I forgot to publish that. I usually keep that up to date.
Well, I can answer this for you now, regardless.
So they sold to open the 4,200, bought to open the 4,995, sold to open the 5,565, 5,370 contracts.
Oh, okay.
And that was a move from.
Thinking, so it's a long collar. I was thinking it was a short collar.
That was a move from short calls at 53.85, long puts at 48.15, and short puts at 40.50. So the puts.
Wait, which one? Say so.
So it moved. So the short call moved from 53.85 to 55.65. The long puts from 48.15 to 49.95, and the short puts from 40.50 to 4,200.
Yeah, I mean that would have a net negative effect. That would net push the market down, not up. So it wouldn't explain the move.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff that expired that they rolled were doing absolutely.
It also finalized after market close, so I don't think it had. Yeah, I don't think the effect was huge.
Yeah,
it's possible that
because we went exactly the opposite way that we would have gone if it mattered.
Yeah.
Not at the beginning of the day.
No,
that's true, but they finalized the roll at like 6 or 408. So it was like it got finalized after market close.
Makes sense.
C-mail because all of the put strikes are shorted.
Yeah. No,
Anyway,
there's
so I wanted to share that delta chart because I think that positioning is compelling. Should we? I won this week, of course. Should we do our predictions for next week?
It was gonna be close. If that baby kept going.
I mean, even if it kept going, I also would have. Also would have won. I mean, I guess it could have gotten maybe closer. Well, Dork would have beat you then, because Dork projected just slightly lower than you did.
Well, it could have gone to 5,300.
I was way off the rest of the week, though. Literally the inverse of what actually happened. But you know, so were all of us.
Yeah.
interesting week.
I don't know. You want me to go first?
I won, so I have to go first because that's what we determined last time. We're gonna start building rules around this. First rule is no flat lines.
Hey, I agree to that.
I don't care.
God damn it! But this is the week for it. Okay, yeah, I think I have a good prediction.
This is why you wanted to go first, because you wanted to take exactly what I wanted to do. You knew it too, because we'd already talked about it. We both came to the independent conclusion that we were likely going to 5,315.
We did. But that's okay, right?
You were like, based on my years of experience and just my read of the market and all of this, blah blah blah. You're like, I think 5,315. And I was like, well, here's some charts that shows why we're going to exactly 5,315.
Well, that's good, right?
It was weird. It was weird.
That's awesome.
In a good way.
That's exactly what I would want out of charts that you show me, is for them to tell me what I already thought, because then I don't have to think those things anymore.
It's kind of like ChatGPT.
How dare you?
If you ever compare me to ChatGPT again, I will take a bip.
Yep, I think that's fair. Justified.
Oh, come on, half a bit.
Just one bip.
One bip. One full bip.
Oh man. Is it my turn now since I was second most accurate?
Yes.
Sure.
Or second least accurate?
Wait, do we have any data? Should we look at data before we do this? We have ISM, PMIs.
It's just like,
no, those are huge. PMIs are a big deal.
We got jolts on Tuesday.
Jolts on Tuesday. They're still projecting that
I don't think
labor is going to fall.
And NFP on Friday. Those are I guess those are the biggest
PCE basically came in perfectly in line, and we went straight up at the open, and then went straight down, and then went straight up. I think it doesn't matter anymore. People are not responding to the data other than just like immediate pumps.
Well, because the data hasn't really done anything interesting. Like, it's just kind of slowly ebbed around, and it's smelling like stagflation. But as soon as like the reason why the data doesn't matter is because it's not really pointing towards an outcome, right? There's no real like trend. I mean, there's kind of one forming, but it's not like official. Like, we're not seeing like inflation or unemployment moving up, 10 basis points a fucking month or something, or a week on Jolt, and we're not seeing consumer spending tanking, right? So it's not obvious what's going on. That's why it's not really having an impact.
One with the market is Kirk.
All right,
I'm becoming a market Yoda, like Buffett.
Oh, where you don't actually say anything about the market, but somehow you make money.
Yeah,
that's kind of a nice thing.
That's called dividends.
All right, my prediction. flat until Thursday, or flat to Wednesday close, and then 5,300 close on Friday.
Flat until Wednesday close?
Yep, and then 5,300 by Friday close. The only reason I'm putting an elbow in there is because you said no flat lines.
You're such a dick.
It's what I expect to happen anyways. I mean, Monday we're probably going to do something like you see, but like with that you did, but
I want to be bearish
I'm just
now.
going to skip that. Why?
Because ISM data is tomorrow.
Well, if ISM comes in super duper hot, yeah, it's gonna probably be bearish as fuck. But I mean, I think, especially as the last services print really wasn't that impactful.
I'm gonna let JFresh have the prediction, and I'm gonna take the contrarian one.
Well, now I don't want it. If you don't want it, I don't want it.
wait, if JFresh doesn't want to take it.
Well, if he wants it, I want it. I'm so confused. What do I want?
Dicks.
I mean, these projections are pretty much flat, anyways. I mean, like just looking at them.
God damn it! That was the one I was going to do. I hate you so much. You took both of my possible paths.
All right, JFresh, you can have whichever one you want. You want this one?
Okay.
All right, I'll take the bull.
Well, obviously, so everything we talked about today says that the bull one is pretty likely.
Yeah,
but I like the bear one because everybody is
bullish.
Long.
Yeah,
Everybody's in. There's this secret seller. I think there's a chance he's not done, and if he's not done, and there's real selling of the underlying, that's the thing. That's like the Achilles heel of any of these options positions. Is if somebody's just simply selling. None, you can flail around and thrash all you want with options, but eventually you will get crushed because you have an expiration and they don't. So that's why I actually was going to we just start going down basically from now into OPEX, and everyone's just like, why are we going down? We're gonna bounce. This can't be right. But we'll simply be going down because everybody's already in.
Yeah. I mean, ISM PMIs are gonna, if they're hot, they're gonna hit hard as fuck on Monday and Wednesday, right? Like services PMI moving from contraction back to expansion, which is already expected. We have hotter inflation. Financial conditions have eased about as much as they're going to be allowed to ease. I mean, I see an equally strong case for the bear side of this, right? And the fact that we didn't get back above GN on Friday.
Yeah, and like I've said multiple times now, I think we'll have much more clarity on this in 3 hours.
Yeah. Also, labor's probably going to be hot again because GDP for Q2 was hot, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think labor is going to continue to be hot. I think they're including so many like gig jobs and stuff that nobody's ever going to know until way later.
The more people that lose their job, the more people go work for Uber.
I just don't think that labor is ever going to be a leading indicator for this particular situation for that reason, that I think that it's just so unclear like what a job is today.
Yeah, I don't even have a job according to the IRS.
Yeah.
So I'm part of the unemployed.
I think earnings calls are where we should listen, right? And there's a lot of earnings calls that are starting to turn, right? So maybe we're at like the beginning of where it starts happening. I don't know. It's also highly nonlinear as well. Like it happens so rapidly once people start defaulting because everything, the economy is so levered. So, it's hard to tell. We could be right near the edge of one.
What if we
If,
stopped making it a competition and we were just like most likely outcome, least likely outcome kind of range?
ooh.
Like a team. Like teamwork.
Oh, now you're talking about actual predictions, Gert. That's gross.
Well, I mean, yes.
I could just run a fucking Monte Carlo simulation on the market, and then we can just put that.
That wouldn't be accurate at all.
It'd be as accurate as our projection. I'll just put in the fucking parameters for the likelihoods and run it.
You don't need to run a Monte Carlo because the input to the Monte Carlo is the probability distribution.
Yeah, but we'll have a bunch of
Just
squiggles.
show the probability distribution.
People like fancy looking data, JFresh. All right, never discount people's desire to see shiny objects. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna let. Do you want the top line or the bottom line, JFresh?
I want the bottom line. I want the bottom line.
All
I like it the way it is.
All right. We'll discuss teamwork and not having something to rub in each other's faces every weekend at a later date.
Yeah, we can make a real actual distribution chart, and
I don't think it should be that sophisticated.
Tomorrow.
No. It still has to be a game. We all draw a line, but then we all rank the lines.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. That's cool because then we can always have an underdog story. People love underdog stories.
Also, we can never lose.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna always label everybody's 0%.
Isn't that what Pickles Picks is? I mean, yes. Once I have the options data to look at and I'm actually doing analysis, the Pickles Picks is definitely where to look for, the higher probability outcomes. But I mean, I don't generally do them on a longer term time frame, right? They're day by day as positioning moves. And so, I mean, it depends. We could increase the accuracy of the weekly predictions if we really wanted to put a lot of effort into it. It could be worthwhile.
This is just fun to see how wrong we are.
Yeah. I mean, like last week, we just hit bad data and the market dumped, right? Like, none of us were particularly bearish. Just, short vol couldn't keep it up.
Hey, when are you going to collab with Tom Lee on predictions, Pickles Picks, and Granny Shots? We could call it Granny's Pickle.
How dare you? His predictions are awful.
I just wanted to say Granny's Pickle.
I know.
And I will follow that up with Sundar Pichai's Hog.
Lean hog.
Hot dog on a stick with a tie.
Use AI to generate a line. Ugh.
No. All right, I'm gonna go. I gotta go. Pretend to be a dad and see if I need to roast Jan LeCun more on Twitter. I think he's blocked me.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. I think we can wrap this up here. If anybody has any questions, feel free to hit me up on the Discord. I'll be around most of the rest of the day. And I'll have Pickles Picks out for everybody tonight. Dork, JFresh, thank you as always. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks for having us on.
Meow meow.
Later.
Later.